Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining me for our final week of studying some famous and favorite Christmas carols so that we can enjoy them even more deeply and understand them even more fully. Christmas is just a few days away, so I'm going to talk today about a beloved song that is used in millions of churches around the world to signify the holiness and meaning of the Incarnation while worshipers hold candles and lift their voices together. Silent Night certainly holds a lot of important memories for me, and I'm sure it does for you too. Silent Night was composed by Joseph Mohr, a man who was born in 1792 to an unwed mother in Salzburg, Austria. His father abandoned them before he was born, so he was named after his godfather, which was the custom at the time for children considered illegitimate. While he was growing up, the vicar of the Salzburg Cathedral encouraged Joseph toward education and provided for him to learn music, especially focusing studies on violin and guitar. This vicar also worked to get special dispensation for Joseph to work toward ordination, which was usually not allowed for children of unwed parents. After graduating from seminary, Father Mohr was sent to Mariafar to serve as an assistant priest. This town where he served just so happened to also be the hometown of his father. In 1816, Mohr penned the lyrics to Silent Night while serving in Mariafar. Poor health forced him back to Salzburg the following year, and after a brief recuperation, he was sent as an assistant priest to Oberndorf, where he befriended a local teacher named Franz Gruber, who was also serving as the organist and choirmaster at the church in Oberndorf. It's at this point in the story where we enter the land of myth. Nobody today remembers what really happened, but legend has it that on a cold Christmas Eve day in 1818, Mohr walked over 2 miles to the home of his friend Gruber. He explained that the organ at Oberndorf was broken. Some versions of the story say it couldn't play because of the bitter cold, and he showed his friend a poem he'd written a few years earlier. He asked Gruber to set the words to music to be accompanied by guitar. According to the legend, just a few hours later, the new carol was performed at Oberndorf with Mohr on guitar, the two men singing a duet, and the choir repeating the last line of the hymn. The song was performed originally at a moderate tempo with a 6/8 meter, rather than the slow, contemplative 3/4 meter we use today. There's no way to know whether this is what really happened, but many scholars suggest that Mohr probably went to Gruber sometime during the year in 1818 to ask for an original composition to perform on his favorite instrument, and then he performed it on Christmas Eve that year, regardless of whether the organ was operational or not. Either way, it's a great story that gives even more meaning to the song. Within a few years of this first performance, many churches in the Salzburg Archdiocese were using this hymn, and folk singers from the area took the song with them on their tours throughout Europe. It was through their performances that the song started to become popular, thanks especially to the Strasser family, whose children would sing this song at their parents' merchant booth at fairs and festivals. The song and this folk singing family gained such popularity that the king and queen asked the children to give a royal performance. Silent Night was translated into English in 1859 by an Episcopal priest named John Freeman Youth at Trinity Church in New York City. He used verses 1, 6, and 2 of the original German hymn, and these are the words we still use today. Famously, Silent Night was sung in English and German during the Christmas truce of 1914 during World War I, because it was one of the few carols known by both sides. This Christmas truce included a series of widespread but unofficial ceasefires along the Western Front in the weeks leading up to Christmas. French, German, and British soldiers ventured into no man's land to mingle, exchange food and souvenirs, bury their dead together, swap prisoners, play soccer, and sing carols. The peace didn't happen everywhere along the front, and it was frowned upon and squashed by leadership. Despite these efforts to keep the so-called enemies apart, some smaller pockets of peaceful meetings did still happen the following year at Christmas. In 2011, Silent Night was chosen by UNESCO, the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, as an intangible cultural heritage. The purpose of UNESCO is to increase peace and security by promoting international collaboration, And an intangible cultural heritage is the practices, representations, expressions, as well as the knowledge and skills, including instruments, objects, artifacts, and cultural spaces that communities and groups recognize as part of their cultural heritage. Other examples of types of things that have been declared as intangible cultural heritage are oral histories, food heritage to preserve traditional diets and recipes, a Mongolian coaxing ritual for camels, and different types of traditional singing and dancing. So, Silent Night is unique among our Christmas hymns in that it is considered part of our cultural heritage. Much of the power of Silent Night comes from its lyrics that both comfort and give hope. Like in many historical periods that give us great works of Christian art, Joseph Mohr lived and wrote his poem in a time of great upheaval for himself and his communities. The Napoleonic Wars were just coming to an end, resulting in changes in the borders of governments and new expectations for national and religious identity. Many of the communities served by Father Mohr relied on the economy that flowed up and down the Salzach River, much of which was interrupted by the wars. In the face of all these political and economic changes, Joseph Mohr chose to serve the most vulnerable among him. After leaving Oberndorf in 1819, Father Mohr traveled around a lot, focusing on providing care and education for children and caring for the elderly. He gave away much of his income to charity, and even today, the Joseph Mohr School that resides in the town where he died stands as a testament to his devotion to educating children. Like Joseph Mohr, or the vicar who helped him grow into his vocation, we have the capacity to bring the kind of hope and peace celebrated in this beloved hymn. Thank you for joining me in reflection this Advent. I invite you to close this series with me with a sneak peek of our Christmas Eve worship, singing and reflecting together on the silent night we will celebrate in just a few days. Thanks, everyone.
Son of God loves pure light.